Welcome to Bloodbath and Beyond. Today I'll be reviewing Plankface, Freedom is Wild. Written and directed by Scott Schirmer, starring Nathan Barrett, Susan M. Martin, Brigid Macaulay, Alyss Winkler, and Ellie Church. This movie's about a man that's taken captive by a feral family in the deep woods. They're determined to transform him body and mind into one of their own, whether he likes it or not. This is a recommendation from our top donator over on Patreon, Deke, and this is a movie that I've actually wanted to see for quite some time. It's also a bonus that this was one of the Horror Pack limited editions a couple months back. However, I'm kind of sad that I don't have the official Bandit Motion version because I have all of their other movies except for Harvest Lake, which is now out of print, and it frustrates me. So anyway, into the review. Firstly, the production value is extremely well done, and this shouldn't be a shock if you've seen the team's previous work because it all looks really polished, especially for indie film. Shout out to Brian K. Williams, he does the cinematography and the music, and I thought both were incredibly well done. The whole movie in general just had a really polished and clean look despite how gross and gritty some aspects are. I also liked our cast. For the most part, there's no talking, so they're forced to emote basically using just their actions. I think the main lead, Max, played by Nathan Barrett, did a fantastic job because he's the one that's abducted. He's the one who just basically left his old life behind and is now living in this cabin, basically being tortured and raped by these women who are trying to turn him into the next Plankface. The prior Plankface had died, and now they basically need a new Plankface to provide seed for them so they can give birth and continue to create this weird family. The Plankface mask looks really cool too. I like the whole idea. It's basically tarred and affixed to somebody's face, and it's just creepy. It only has one eye hole, and the way that it's shaped is just unnatural, and I like that. I don't want to give too much away because there's not a lot of gore, but when there is, it looks fantastic, especially during a scene that stars Dave Parker, who most people would probably know as Mr. Parka on YouTube, who's been doing reviews of horror long before we even started. Well, the movie in general is decent from like most aspects. If you were to just like isolate sections, you'd be like, oh, that's a cool little indie flick. But as a whole, I felt that it was a bit dry simply because there is no talking. So, while I do praise the acting because that's very difficult to do in a lot of cases, I just wasn't a huge fan of that aspect. And I also didn't really like that it's somewhat predictable. I mean, you kind of know exactly the path that this story is going because the front cover showcases Max as Plankface, and the whole movie is just them making him into Plankface, whether physically or conditioning him to basically love the girls and that kind of stuff. So there wasn't that much excitement because you kind of knew exactly what was going to happen. There is kind of a bigger moment towards the end, but I'm not quite certain that I enjoyed the ride to get there. This is definitely a movie that's worth knowing that it's slow before you actually turn it on, simply because you want to be in the right mindset to enjoy something that is a bit slower and doesn't have dialogue. I think the production value is great. I enjoyed the acting. I mean, some of the grunts were kind of weird and misplaced, but as a whole it wasn't that distracting, and I think everybody did a great job. There is a lot of nudity, which I neglected to mention, but considering the context of everything, you're not looking at it as nudity. Like, there's nothing sexy about this movie because everybody's just like disgusting and covered in dirt and stuff, and that's no disrespect to the actresses and Max, who's also naked, but it's not really the primary focus, and I think that's somewhat commendable about certain actresses in the movie, which I didn't mention in my likes, but the fact that the women are just kind of like freely running around. They could be wearing a shirt, but then like their boobs pop out, but they don't fix it. Like, they make sure that they feel like they've lived in the woods and don't have a care in the world. And that's one of the aspects that I enjoyed about the acting because they felt like they were backwoods people. But when it's all said and done, it wasn't necessarily my cup of tea. They did a lot of great things, but it was a little bit too slow for my liking, and I personally would have appreciated a bit more pushback from Max or some kind of other problem to arise throughout the movie just to kind of break things up because it seemed very predictable to me. So at the end of the day, I'm gonna give this 2.5 delectable backwoods treats out of 5. As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, links are in the description. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with everything Bloodbath and Beyond.